Hello, welcome to Religion of Freedom. My name is Herb, and I'll be your guide for this journey down the rabbit hole. Human sacrifice is one of the most appalling and mysterious practices of ancient cultures and religions. When the Spanish came to explore the Americas in the 1600s, the Aztecs were still practicing human sacrifice, a tradition that was thought to be passed down from their ancestors, the Olmec, the Maya, and the Toltec. Although the Aztec literally state their reason for the rituals, there still seems to be a bit of confusion among historians. What they don't understand is that the ancestors of the Aztecs witnessed the events described in the creation myth of the fifth sun with their own eyes, and they passed these stories down for generations, long before there was written word in their culture. This is a tale that should be taken literally instead of writing it off as a myth. How do I know? Because I found the three gods involved in the legend of the creation of the fifth sun on Google Earth. I made a video about it. You should check it out. It's called North American Gods Revealed. According to legend, a giant sea monster named Tlatelolco was wreaking havoc on the existing land and the earth in general. She was created by two gods named Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca, aka the Hero Twins. They were opposites and rivals who competed with each other for the honor of being the sun. But after seeing all the destruction Tlatelolco was causing, they transformed themselves into plumed serpents and worked together to kill the monster. Tezcatlipoca used his foot to bait her, and when she bit, he attacked her at her throat, and he anchored her jaw to the land, so she couldn't go anywhere. It looks like he might be holding one of his severed claws in his healthy foot, or holding the end of the digit where it was bitten off. I bet there's a huge tunnel underneath this body of water, connecting it to the inside of the rest of Tezcatlipoca's body. It could be one of the many portals to the underworld. The legend says the dragons tore Tlatelolco in half, which you can see here that she isn't far from being half. It appears Tezcatlipoca held her down while Quetzalcoatl tore at her side until she was disemboweled. This looks like a lung, and you can still see the red from her blood on the landscape everywhere where her guts are. I wonder if there's any good singers from Wyoming. Quetzalcoatl seems to have spit fire or something similar to the Sahara dragon. That was first found by Roger at Mud Fossil University. He has done quite a few videos, and you should really go check those out. I wonder if when the dragon dies, that they automatically spew that stuff out. Similar to when a human dies, they let go of their bowels and release, whatever's inside of them. Maybe the same thing is, there's two compartments where the different chemicals are kept separate, and then when the dragon dies, they just decompress and it blows out, and it just causes, the dragon to breathe fire as he's dying. Talk about a death rattle, huh? The Aztec depiction of Tezcatlipoca often shows him with his foot replaced by an obsidian mirror. And I find that pretty fascinating because the area where his actual remaining foot and legs are is full of obsidian. There's a place very nearby called Obsidian Ridge. So that seems to match up pretty well, I think. Obviously, in the end, all of the giants died, and the people saw these giants die. Initially, they caused massive destruction and death, and their bodies became the new mountains, rivers, caves, and the land. But after everything settled down, things should have been great. There was new fertile land, lots of food, and shelter for the people and the animals, and tons of usable resources. The people took note of this because they knew these gods had died, and without their sacrifices of their bodies, us humans wouldn't have anything, because everything we have comes from the gods, literally. And they believed that there was a debt to be paid to the gods for this, with their own blood, and the blood of ritual sacrifices. If not, they could have bad crops or hunting seasons. There could be earthquakes and turmoil. There could be sickness and death. And I'm sure all of these things, when they occurred, were used as proof that more and possibly greater sacrifices were needed to please the gods. Tlachtli was hungry when she was alive, and she was hungry when she was dead too. The earthquakes were going to happen regardless of any outside influence, because the bodies were decomposing, and they would have shifted and sank massively at times, disturbing the entire area and everyone living on or near the surface of her body. Archaeologists have found broken pieces of coral in a muddy substance where her guts are, and I think it's the contents of her stomach. They told us she was hungry. There's also a great number of dinosaur bones found in the general area, and I wonder if some of them came from her stomach because she had eaten them, or if they came to feast on her body after she was dead. I mean, it's interesting how you don't find a lot of dinosaurs anywhere near Quetzalcoatl. That's probably because they were afraid to go over there. They didn't know if he was still alive or not. I mean, that's my guess anyway. Why did Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca create the mermaid in the first place? I mean, was it to kill the dinosaurs and the giants and make it safer for us little humans to live? Or is it like if someone got a tiger to tame a mouse problem in their house, and then they had to kill the tiger because it was destroying the place? Tezcatlipoca is described often as having jaguar features, so maybe someone had the same inside joke. I don't know, that's a stretch, but I don't really understand yet why Tezcatlipoca is described as a jaguar. Maybe it could just be that his face had the black and yellow stripes on it, like a jaguar's face, and it looks like it could have had some spots on it too, so maybe that's all it is. Maybe that's why they gave him those attributes. But he is shown here on top of Tlachtli, and she has his foot in her mouth. So if the gods made these dragons, I wonder if they grew them in a place like Loch Ness or something. Maybe that's why we see the Loch Ness monster. They might be baby dragons that are growing to adulthood and don't have wings yet, only swim. I don't know. I guess it would be a good place if it had only shallow inlets to it from the outside, so maybe it couldn't swim to the outside. I don't know. That's just a crazy little thought, but you never know. I wonder if dragons are used as war vehicles commonly by the gods. The Olmec dragon, which is said to be an early depiction of Quetzalcoatl, features the god piloting the dragon from inside, and it appears to have a monitor in front of him. He's holding the mysterious handbag that is often seen in the hands of Egyptian gods. So what's in the bag? Is it the source of their powers? Or is it just a battery pack, which is the source of their power for the monitors and the computers that they use to control the dragon's mind with? In that way, could dragons be an option for space travel? I mean, we can drive cars and ride horses. Maybe the gods can either fly a spaceship or ride a dragon in a similar way. After the gods killed the mermaid with their dragon avatars, the people believed the mermaid was still alive and she was very hungry for human blood. The noises of the gases escaping her body, the wailing sounds that they would hear as she decomposed, they were said to be her cries for blood. And the earthquakes that occurred as her body compressed were said to be because she was angry at the people and they needed to sacrifice more. But who was really demanding and consuming these sacrifices? Were the priests using the sacrifices to obtain and consume adrenochrome? Adrenochrome occurs when a victim is tortured to the point where their adrenaline crystallizes in their blood, and it is a powerful hallucinogenic. And the priest would have believed this to be divine visions from the gods. They would have believed they were communicating with the gods, with the cosmos, and the underworld, which they did believe that. And curiously, Quetzalcoatl was said to not demand blood, but he was offered butterflies and hummingbirds. Quetzalcoatl created man and used his own blood in doing so. They did perform sacrifices at the temple of the feathered serpent, according to the evidence they found by the Spanish, so I really don't know. There's some contradictions there. But under the temple of the feathered serpent, a tunnel was found using LiDAR technology, which leads to a cave directly under the altar. Was this where the entities who demanded these sacrifices hid? Did the blood from the victims flow down to them? Who was down there? Was it some of the man-eating giants? Once the mermaid was killed, smaller giant people, like people bigger than us, giant to us, but not near as big as the giants of the gods, those people may have gotten to the carcasses of the gods before anyone else did, because they were bigger and stronger. And they could have taken up residence inside and masqueraded as the gods. A lot of legends around the world do claim that some giants did eat people. You hear the stories about the giant that crushed up the bones of man to make his bread. And maybe that's why they had to give them the human sacrifices to feed the giants. No matter who it was who was asking for these sacrifices, I believe that the Aztecs didn't just make these stories up themselves, and they didn't make up these requests themselves unless it was just the priests. I don't think the Aztecs had the creative capacity to make up these elaborate myths about these giant monsters and dragons, because if they would have been that creative in making up things, they probably would have been creative enough to use the wheel to pull heavy loads, which they didn't. And they didn't use animals to plow with either, like most of the other world had been doing for some places 3,000 years already. And I think this happened because life was too easy for them. The land was super fertile and fresh and hadn't been fully compacted like most of the rest of the land is now. And I think with their hand tools, they could easily plow their fields and grow their crops. And another thing is, they had wheels that they used in their ball game as a type of goal that they would, send the ball through to make a goal. And they never thought to maybe put a log or something in there and roll it and attach it to something heavy. Other than the goal on their ball game, they also had some wheels on toys for kids, but they never used it for anything else. And their ball game, they really took seriously. They even worked it into their religion. There were legends of the gods playing the game in the underworld. Sometimes players on the opposing teams would be taken after defeating them, and they were used as sacrifices. And they believed in war and bloodshed, and that it was required by the gods. And instead of going and raiding each other's cities and tearing everything up all the time, they just decided they would prearrange these wars called flower wars. And they would only try to injure and capture their competitors, and the prisoners would become sacrifices. There was social honor in being sacrificed. Some of the captured enemies would be pampered and held in high esteem for a year before the debt of their life would be paid. I wonder if there's a science to that, like massaging a cow to make a steak better. If a person was very calm and relaxed for an entire year and maybe ate a special diet, would they produce more potent adrenochrome when they're sacrificed? I don't know, just a thought. In Aztec culture, if a person was sacrificed, it could help their families gain social status. But on the other hand, if someone is selected to be a sacrifice and somehow they find a way out of it, they might as well be dead, because they will be ostracized, and probably their family too, to the point where it will be hard to live after that. When the Spanish intervened in a sacrifice that was happening in the 1600s, they tried to free the victims, and some of the victims demanded to be sacrificed. I don't know if the Spanish obliged these requests or not, but they didn't really say. What I do know is people believed that in order to maintain harmony, they had to offer human sacrifices to the gods, and they had to shed blood through war. But I have no idea who was really asking for the sacrifices. So it could be the advanced race that is the gods, the ones who created the dragons and the mermaid. It could be the giants that took over the carcasses because they got there first after it happened. Or it could just be the priests who were adrenochrome junkies and they were having visions and wanted to keep doing it. So with that, I'm going to end this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I really thank you for playing along. This is Herb and Religion of Freedom. We'll see you next time.